And the 3 seconds are up now.
Oh, good. Well, as the old Foghorn Leghorn used to say on the Saturday morning cartoons, let the bells ring and the banners fly. It's too good to be true, but we're here.
Yes, we are. We're here alive and in color. And
I guess that's a good thing.
Yes.
On both spots.
That's right. And what will be today's word of the day, Bob?
Well, I can't really think of one word. I can think of a phrase, sleight of hand.
Okay. Sleight of hand. That would be a statement as opposed to, yes, or a, well, a sleight of hand, we could do it, it could be a verbal meme.
Yeah, we could do that too.
Okay.
Yeah. That's going to take some interesting thoughts.
Yes. And we're aware of sleight of hands that have taken place.
Well, we are, yes. There's lots of things that are going on. That, sleight of hand is the phrase. Ruse probably would be the word. Grifter comes to mind. There's lots of things that could be summed up.
Well, as I posted this morning, today's BORDERPOL Journal video and podcast, we're going to look at the curb appeal of our illustrious Prime Minister. You know what curb appeal is, right? It's
yeah, that's right. In real estate, it's if you don't have something that's worthwhile looking at because it doesn't look good from the front, you just keep on driving by.
Correct.
Unfortunately, as we stated before, with the magnificent study that was done on the memory attention span of goldfish, most of the voters in Canada are way, way below that. They tend to look at things in microseconds as opposed to real seconds. And I saw this morning, looking at the news as I was having a bite of eat, that because the third quarter numbers are improving in Canada, that our magnificent PM has had the right strategy all along, and he's pulling us up, and we're going to be a world leader soon again.
Okay. Well, yes, and I believe fairy dust is going to be on sale because it's Black Friday today.
Well, it's amazing. Let's go and query your favorite portal and find out what's on sale, and we'll see if fairy dust does come up.
Well, the fairy dust in Canada is really a real seller.
Well, it is. I think. Yeah, we have a lot of people that I don't know what they seem to be so afraid of with a conservative government or a conservative leader or anything to the right. But my gosh, here in Canada, even our conservatives would be almost equivalent with, in the United States, what would be considered a moderate Democrat.
Oh, absolutely. Middle of the road Democrat.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the curb appeal with the leadership from the apex on down, which starts with the PMO, is that with all the announcements that were made, and not one time did he ever talk about the average Canadian and what will all those things do for that person. Never talks about the actual job that will be created for these people out of these mega projects. Never talks about, will their life standard improve? Will their communities be safer? What does it? That's what I'm saying. Like, curb appeal means, or if you want to use another common thing for describing political figures, is what's his retail sale like? Retail politics. You got to be able to talk to folks look him in the eye and say, look, this is what you're going to get from all the work I'm doing. You're okay, and even if you're BSing them, at least make an attempt. This suit doesn't do that. He steps up in front of a microphone with a dozen or so people in hard hats or suits or whatever behind him, looking like stooges actually, and bobbing their heads when he says something. But he never talks to the person who is directly affected by all these grandiose schemes. Like, they don't talk about how many jobs are going to be created by these various initiatives and these billions that are being spent. How many jobs, for example, are created for Canadians by sending $500 million to the European Space Agency? He never talks about that. He just says, we're doing this. He never talks about how many jobs are being created or how will life become better by increasing the carbon tax in...
well, that's true. Yeah.
None of this stuff. It's never talked about.
Well, it's also interesting to see that, a couple of things. We've given a lot of money to the Ukraine, and it's interesting now that President Zelensky's right-hand man has been asked to step down, forced to step down, decided to step down, whatever euphemism you want to use there, because of strong ties to this corruption that's going on. So I'd like to have a public accounting of where did our $22 billion end up in the Ukraine? Was it actually helping the Ukrainians? That's another thing that they could talk about. And if it was actually helping the Ukrainians, maybe it would. But that's falls right into what you're saying there. This particular band of thugs can't talk to the average Canadian because they have absolutely no idea what it is to be average. These are people that are making high six-figure salaries. John Q. Public is lucky if he's making a moderate five-figure sell. I mean, what does Stats Canada say? The average person in Canada is making $55,000 a year. A far cry from what a backbencher is making at almost $200,000 a year.
Yeah, I think $206,000 is the basic figure.
And it's going to go up again next year because of their managing to take care of themselves, where every April 1st they get a wage increase, whether they deserve it or not. Coupled with that, we now have the same issue of a particular individual who is apparently still a member of Parliament for a particular riding, but who has been named a special ambassador to the Ukraine and who is now leaving that particular post to go to England, where apparently she's moving permanently. And I don't know, I haven't seen anything on any media to say that she's actually stepping down. And if that's the case, when is the by-election going to be held? What's going to happen there? Is it a safe Liberal riding? Is there such a thing as a safe riding anymore? I mean, the last election we had here in Canada sure proved that was not the case. But anyway, that's kind of off on a bit of a rant with curb appeal. And to come back to your point about what's going on with the money that's disappearing various places in the Ukraine file, is a person who is essentially over there right now in Kiev is now going to be working in the UK. She has a job with the Rhodes Trust. Now, you could ask her, where does she fit in with this expose by the international press? I mean, the fact that the anti-corruption agency within the Ukraine was going into the offices of the senior people in Zelensky's cabinet,
looking for money, and they were disappearing like rats off a ship that's sinking. So, it would be interesting to ask Ms. Freeland, well, how much did you know about this, and when did you learn about it?
Well, we could also then tack that into the fact that we have Madame Jolie, who apparently doesn't read very big contracts to the tune of $13 billion, has disappeared to a company that is now moving to the United States. And we have no hope of getting that money back. But I'd still like to have an accounting of that as well. But I'm afraid...
No, you're not going to see
my supply of pixie dust would need to be replaced almost every day if I wanted to find that out.
Yeah, you'd have to buy a big load of it on Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we had said in pre-production and on X was the con job that Albertans got from the agreement yesterday between Alberta and Canada on this pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
I feel sorry for our Canadian brothers and sisters in Alberta because they're not going to see a pipeline. This is a joke.
No, they're not.
And I feel sorry for Danielle Smith because they put her into a very, very difficult position.
She's in a no-win
You
situation.
know, she's going to have serious trouble with this because anybody who looks at the strategic purpose of this agreement, it's basically to rag the puck as long as possible. One is to make sure that they somehow derail any chance of Alberta, dealing with the sovereignty issue between now and July, because that's the time frame that this whole silliness is being created to. You know full well that EB or Premier out in BC has no intention of going along with any of this. You know full well, nor the First Nations, this isn't going to happen. And so she's going to, and she can't take a position on the sovereignty issue because that's not what she ran on, and she would be justly criticized for taking any position on that. But she had to acquiesce to a big jump in the carbon tax in BC. For the industrial carbon tax is basically going up 600% from right now. Over the course of this agreement, so she's in a very, very difficult position.
Very, very tenuous, yeah. And I guess coupled with that is that, well, two things on that. One, she's been painted into a corner.
Absolutely.
And the other side of that is now there's 12 or 13 recalls that are going on.
Yes, and you wonder who's behind those.
All in the UPC, United Conservative Party of Alberta's ridings. I guess that's understandable because primarily there isn't very big opposition anyway.
Yep.
But I'd like to know where that money's coming from. Oh. It's very, very reminiscent of what transpired in our last election, where massive amounts of money were going into to paint the leader of the official opposition as a Donald Trump 2, and scaring away people that the MAGA movement was moving into Canada. I still don't see that. But then maybe I've had my head in the sand too. I don't know.
Look, this bunch will stop at nothing to stay in power. I mean, the grifter class, which we've talked about many times before, and it's not like we're picking on them. It's just easy pickings. I mean, look, here's an issue that came up this last couple of days. It was reported by none other than the Rebel News people out in Alberta that Stephanie McLean, who is a member of cabinet, has never attended a cabinet meeting, apparently. Okay? She started off as an NDP MLA in Alberta, then decided she wanted to be a Liberal MP, goes to Ottawa, and apparently she did nothing as an NDP MLA in Alberta, and now she continues the same MO in Ottawa. Now, when they were asked about how many cabinet meetings has she attended, I didn't even know this woman existed. I never heard of her. Okay, not that I'm particular. Okay, like she's the government refuses to respond to a question of what exactly has she actually been at a cabinet meeting? Now, why would you refuse to answer that question? I mean, just where's the money coming from? Okay,
I guess there's something that rings a bell, I guess is the best way to say that. It reminds me so much of a famous senator we had by the name of Ed Lawson, who was censured by the Senate many decades ago now because of his, I think he was in the Senate for 20 years, long time anyway.
Yes. And
he had attended 3 meetings. Most of the times he was in a villa down in Mexico. But there's no recall on a senator. There's no repercussions on a senator. It's looking more and more that way with any political body, that once you're elected, you can do just about anything you want, and there's no way that you're ever going to be removed unless the people happen to remember that you were totally ineffectual 4 years later when they come to vote again.
Yeah, well, I think that Alberta is going to rue the day that this agreement is going to be exposed next July 1st, which is Canada Day. Now, a lot can happen over the next 7 months, but...
Well, you mentioned before that 7 months, that's a lifetime in politics.
Yes.
And, maybe we're looking at this in a very narrow spot. Maybe Premier Smith has decided to sign on to this, knowing full well that it's nothing more than what has transpired over the last 7 to 9 months with this individual that's supposedly in charge of this country.
Yes.
Is being what it is, a photo op. Another meaningless piece of paper. It'll be interesting, again, coming back to fiddly bits of paper. What is going to happen with this big amount of money that the United Arab Emirates are going to invest in Canada? I don't see any of them lining up to come here. And in fairness to them, it is winter and it is cold. But I would venture to say we're probably not like any of the other pieces of paper that have been signed. I have yet to see any news, even on the bought-off press here in Canada, of any of these high-ranking people coming to Canada to reciprocate exchange of, hand flesh, whatever, to reaffirm these deals or whatnot.
Yeah, but
then maybe again I'm being too cynical.
No, but the point is, and we already said it, what will it do for creating jobs? We never talk about what is the end result here. All we can see so far by other analysts who share the social media sphere of information, particularly a fellow who runs the Moose on the Loose podcast, where the only thing that is improving is the Brookfield accounts of the PM. And he does this quite transparently. In fact, I worry about how much information he puts out in the public, in the sphere, about the links between the PM and Brookfield, even to this day, and how he's being guardrailed by the Privy Council. And this is something very strange about this. This verges on fraud of the highest magnitude. But Look, there are things here. Just came out last night. Was that the Epic Times reported that more than 23,000 patients in Canada died last year while waiting for health care. They were on wait lists, across the country. These are people waiting for operations. Obviously, these operations were life and death issues because more than 23,000 patients died waiting for this brilliant health care, that is touted to be one of the most outstanding in the world by these grifters. And you're thinking, you had the audacity, I almost said another word, to send $500 million to the European Union, to a space agency we're not even a member of, what do we get? What does the European Union Space Agency do for us? I dare say that $500 million would be much better spent making sure that 23,000 patients waiting in the corridors of hospitals coast to coast didn't croak. But that doesn't seem to be of any interest to the paid-off media, and you don't hear that being brought up in the House of Commons. And an answer to the question is, well, we didn't know. Well, what are you talking about? So these are far more significant issues.
And coupled with that $500 million, it's a lot of money. Basically, it is to John Q. Public, who is lucky if in the course of a lifetime they're ever going to see $5 million, unless they win a lotto. But that's also coupled with the amount of money, and I do feel very sorry for the people of the Ukraine. But however much, that's $40 billion, which is like an astronomical amount, again, to John Q. Public. That's a lot of money that could have gone into our own infrastructure, upgrading, upbuilding. It could have gone into healthcare. It could have gone into countless number of projects that would be there.
The fact that the corruption is so high and has since day one. And, I had the misfortune of spending time in the Ukraine years ago as part of my assignment in Eastern Europe. It was one of the most absolutely corrupt places on the planet. In fact, everybody knows that in the world it's one of the most corrupt countries to this very day. And so for us to be shipping this kind of hard-earned cash over to them, and then now all of a sudden we realize that there are literally hundreds of millions of dollars that have ended up in mansions, in various parts of the Caribbean and in Europe for some of these grifters and absolute criminals. Never mind the millions of people that have been killed or maimed over this stupid war. Which by the way, just to reinforce some of the misinformation they like to keep saying that this only started 4 years ago. This started 10 years ago. This is a lot of malarkey coming out of the Biden era, machinery that gave us the evil stuff of Afghanistan withdrawal, of the mollycoddling of the Ukrainians through the Biden machinery. His kid and him were over there in the midst of all this, drawing all kinds of money out of Burisma and what have you. So this is a really stinky story that's now starting to fall apart, and I think they're going to throw Zelensky under the bus because right now there's other issues that are popping up in the radar of the Americans, which is going to cause them to say, we have bigger fish to fry on the other side of the planet right now. So I don't think it's a coincidence, and coincidences are rare, but the Americans' interest in the Western Hemisphere, and less so in Europe and Ukraine, is not a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, which costs like $6 million a day just to run, is bobbing around Trinidad and Tobago and in the Southern Caribbean with a whole fleet of other ships going to be dealing with Venezuela. And of course, why are they in that part of the world? Because that's the part of the world that's of interest to the United States. And so when the United States says to the Chinese and the Russians, you stay the hell out of the Western Hemisphere, it's not a coincidence that the Russians tell the Americans and basically the Western to stay the hell out of our neck of the woods. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I think these two issues are really very much joined. And so there are our media doesn't seem to be very much interested in what's going on affecting us.
Our media is so xenophobic, I guess. We used to say that was a word that was reserved for the North Koreans or the Japanese, that were very, very inward looking and not worried about what was going on, but we sure seem to have caught that bus, particularly on some political files, maybe not so much on immigration, but we certainly are not too interested in what's going on outside of our own realm, as it were. We've got, I don't know how many people here that are supposedly going to have their visas expire sometime this year or early next year that are probably going to self-deport themselves. And if you believe that, then I got a supply of pixie dust that I just bought off of eBay.
On Black Friday. Yeah. Well, listen, don't even go there, because we'll use another half hour of our time today, because I watched Aaron Gorman, who's the head of the CBSA, where they can't find 32,000 people they're supposed to remove, actually have gone through all the appeal processes and disappeared. How do you do that? Okay. Well, and actually admits to the fact that they haven't a clue where these people are. Okay.
Well, again, I don't want to rain on his parade, but when I was involved in that project decades ago in setting up what was called the War Response Center, we already had 30,000 people. And that goes back 3 decades.
Bob.
So,
these people have been BSing us on this issue of removals for, as you say, decades and decades. All right. I spent some years in that section of the government in Ottawa that was called Enforcement and Removals. And we didn't have money to remove anybody, literally. This is real ancient history, but at that time we had something like 60,000 removal cases. This is 30 years ago. My God, this ancient history. But to remove someone 30 years ago cost just under $1 million when you added up all the costs of the processing, the transportation, the legal costs, the toing and froing, okay? 60,000 removals couldn't be removed because we had the equivalent of 1,000 removals at $1 million a pop. That's how much money was in the kitty to remove people. Full stop for the entire country. Okay? End of story. Okay? You couldn't remove 60,000 people with that kind of a budget. Best of my knowledge, nothing's changed there.
Oh, nothing's changed. And let's also take another look at a hard fact as well. These people that we would like to remove, we haven't got the luxury that the U.S. does with loading up a plane and dropping them off in Central America somewhere. Because the reality is that if we say this person's a Mexican or an El Salvadorian or a Guatemalan or a Zarian or whatever they happen to be, and we go to the embassy of that country and they say he's not ours, what do we do with them? We can't get a travel document to remove them. We can't take them anywhere. So we're kind of stuck that way.
Well,
and I keep on thinking that this is going to end up like it did in the 80s when we had the "Make My Country Your Country."
Oh, I remember. I hated that slogan.
It was stupid because it didn't work, and then they went to all the universities and started asking students if they'd like to stay.
Yeah. Well,
but now we started the same thing again with this whole issue of if you're here on a work permit, you're going to get a fast track on permanent residency. And then on top of that, once you get your permanent residency, your wife and family is all going to be welcome here as well.
And you also have this new citizenship going back 2 generations that you can now pull up out of a hat. I was going to say somewhere else, but we would be censured for saying that. But look, let's say pull out of a hat, not something further south from your head, right? Yeah. And I think you were telling me that there's over 500,000 Americans who would now qualify
that could be eligible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, have we lost our minds? And the answer, I think, clearly,
quite clearly, yes.
But the people who are in charge here are internationalists. They have no interest in a Canadian identity when it comes to how do we develop our pathway from immigrant to citizen. It doesn't matter. This is all fast tracked. And even if you're illegally here, so what? We even use that. Even if you're here illegally for 5 years and you get caught, and then they suddenly come with an amnesty, you get a half a day for every year here, supposedly as a contributing member of society towards your citizenship. Like, what else is? This is so stupid.
Well, yeah. Far cry from where most of the rest of the world is going.
Well,
like we had mentioned a couple of broadcasts back. It was Portugal now, where it's 10 years before you're eligible to apply.
That's right.
Eligible, not that you can get it. You will be eligible in 10 years.
Well, let's just compare systems for a second here. If you're in Singapore and you're there illegally, okay, they'll give you 6 months in the cooler. If you enter Russia illegally, they put you 2 years in a labor camp. Okay, if you're in India, you go up to 8 years in prison. In Pakistan, like how many people want to go live illegally in Pakistan? I don't know, but if you get caught there, it's 10 years in the slammer. And in North Korea, if you were to do that, well, it's kind of permanent. All you hear is a bang, and that's all it's going to be. But if you come to Canada, or U.S. or Europe, well, you get housing, you get health care, you get education, you get public transit, you get cell phones in some cases, even cash, because after all, there's some kind of reason that these people need to be looked after, So if you're not going to be interested in dealing with your own issues at home first, and you're focusing on being all things to all people who shouldn't be here in the first place, then what's the point? It's like it's a self-defeating policy. But that's where we are. And by the way, Canada is probably the lamest of the bunch. But like I said, you can throw in the Americans, you can throw in the Europeans. Angela Merkel in 2015 said there's no such thing as an illegal. And look what they ended up with. Germany is a basket case as a consequence.
Yeah.
But listen, I don't understand, things that happen in this country that apparently is anywhere else would be outrage. But here you have a guy like Stephen Guilbeault, who has been a climate wingnut. He decided finally, he's going to quit, but he's not leaving his job as an MP. Okay, he's not that crazy. He's still going to pick up his $200,000 a year, but he's just outraged that there's going to be even a talk of a tanker ban or a pipeline on the West Coast. Somebody pointed out, by the way, that the tanker ban only applies to Canadian vessels or Canadian deliveries, because the Americans and the rest of the world merely go down the West Coast all the time, and. They don't seem to have a real problem with the safety of these vessels, which are quite sophisticated. And this is not to the days of the 60s when we had lots of accidents.
The Exxon Valdez.
Exxon Valdez, exactly.
And that's an interesting concept. Since the Exxon Valdez debacle, I can't recall of any large tankers from any particular country going down. And I certainly haven't been on the internet trolling that to find out how many tankers are sunk, particularly on the West Coast, but generally around the world. The companies learn. They've got double hulls. They've got all kinds of things. Now, obviously, accidents will happen. There's no question about it. But that's why they call them accidents. They're not planned. They don't specifically go looking for a reef or a toll to run into, or I just don't see that. Whether you stop just Canadian, well, we don't have any Canadian tankers anyway. It's like our military. We don't have very much of that. We don't have, we're now debating whether we're going to still run 60-year-old airplanes until we can decide whether we want a European fighter or an American fighter.
That's total nonsense. That's just another example of how the man in the suit from London, Dublin, New York City decided he's going to put another stick in the spokes of the wheel of the American industrial military complex, and by extension, poking the boogeyman in Washington, and this is really dumb. The military people have said in lots of places that this whole thing is nothing more than ragging the puck, if you will, because the Griffin will really never be of any use to Canada. We've already invested a pile of dough into the F-35. If you ever see videos of the F-35 as Lockheed is flying them around to various air shows, there are 6 or 7 flags on the fuselage on the side of the F-35, and the Canadian flag is one of them, because there's a hell of a lot of dough been sunk into that airplane. And by the time we get it, it's going to be almost an antique because it's already been in the air for about 10 years. Okay, so this
and I guess that's also going to be interesting. We've apparently got a contract to get 30 of these things, maybe I don't know, not a great amount considering the number that we have to replace on the. What is it? The F-16 Super Eagle that we bought used from Australia. I don't. That will the powers that be in Ottawa just decide that we don't like that anymore and we're just going to cancel the contract. It'll be like the Stellantis thing. It'll be another $15 billion, $16 billion that we'll have to eat. I just don't understand. And maybe there's a groundswell out there, but people are going to have to start standing up and wanting accountability.
I'll have to disagree with you. I don't think Canadians are going to ask for any accountability on anything until times get tougher. I just think I think we're so soft at the moment in so many ways. We're still able to live off the fat of the land. In many ways, we're still in kind of a Pollyanna matrix. I mean, I don't want look. There's no question that the tough times that come. This winter is going to be tough. I think very clearly we'll have to wait until the spring to see how all these crazy agreements actually start to pan out. And my bet is that none of them are going anywhere. This is just a bunch of Neville Chamberlain papers being waved about. And when you see sort of the shenanigans that go on in the Canadian Parliament, where various members, foreign-born MPs, okay, they may be Canadian citizens now, but they're foreign-born, who stand up and go on and on about whether it's South Asian history or Chinese history, this whole multicultural thing about how this is a great thing in Canada and that we should be giving money to the various groups that are siloing communities across the country. I mean, this is the problem with this whole business of what is a Team Canada supposed to be. There's no Team Canada here. That's the problem with the setup we have. because our own elected officials care more about other countries and religious conflicts than our own problems in this country. Which to me, I don't want to hear anybody stand up in the House of the People in Ottawa and make a long-winded speech about how we have to worry about some sect in some country halfway around the globe, and then find ways to send money there. I'm done with that. And I'd be curious to know, and we talked about this yesterday, about how many MPs in Canada's Parliament are foreign-born and have multiple citizenships, because I get a sneaking suspicion in the tenure and the tone of some of these comments by these folks that they have an ulterior motive going on here. I mean, we know that the current PM has 3 citizenships that he can use at any given time. And so what about the rest of them? We know that, the opposition, former head of the opposition, Scheer, has American dual national. Elizabeth May is born in Connecticut. I don't think she's renounced her American citizenship. I can be proven wrong, but she's, so how many of these folks, especially the more recent ones, whose some names I can't even pronounce, are in cabinet? I'm telling you, blood is thicker than water. That's a proverb in English, meaning that familiar bonds are always stronger than the other. So, when we do that,
and I guess just a couple along with that, our illustrious Prime Minister has indicated that he's not going to renew his British passport or his Irish passport or some passport, but which doesn't matter.
No, doesn't.
And as far as, Elizabeth May, somebody may come up and say, yes, she has formally renounced her citizenship, but that's also a little bit of bait and switch here, because if their laws are anything like our laws, you have to formally renounce your citizenship, and the government has to acknowledge that. It's not just a matter of saying, well, I don't want to be a Canadian anymore, so I'm renouncing my citizenship. That's like one of the Prime Minister's photo ops, waving a piece of paper. It means absolutely nothing, because nothing formal has been done. And I believe that's the same in the United States. You have to formally renounce it. It has to be formally accepted, and then they issue a certificate of uncitizenship or something. I don't know. So you can have all this talk about, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that, but I'm a Canadian citizen and blah, 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 blah. And it is. It's just all hubris.
Well, I don't know if you heard this. This came across the wire 2 days ago. There are Palestinians in Canada. Remember, these are not citizens of Canada. They're here on the various streets of our urban centers protesting. I don't know how they have the time to do all this protesting. Apparently, they don't have jobs, but I digress. But Palestinians are suing Canada for not doing more during the war in Gaza. In other words, they want Canada to pay for the indiscretions of the Israelis in Gaza. Where are we living here? That there's actually some guy standing up at a dais saying that Canadians have to pay Palestinians wandering around on our streets here because the Israelis are doing whatever they're doing around Gaza. If these Palestinians are so damn upset about why don't they get on a plane and go to the Middle East and deal with the Israelis? Why are they on our streets demanding we give them money for something another country's done to them? And this is only in Canada.
Alternatively, you don't like the way we're handling it, you have an option. You can leave. Or 2, you can get a job and fund this stuff yourself.
Well, okay. Well, juxtapose that with $70 million or $1 billion that the United Arab Emirates are supposed to be investing in Canada. If they have all this money to take care of Canadians, why don't they take care of Palestinians right next door to them? Or why does some other Middle East country deal? Why in the blue blazes are these folks, here being mollycoddled and actually having the chutzpah to say that Canadians need to come up with dough for them, so they're going to be somehow vindicated financially with what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, give me a break. What this is why this country, one of the reasons it's broken.
Don't be surprised that somewhere along the line there'll be some kind of settlement reached out of court. Our government doesn't have the cojones to stand up to anything unless, of course, you happen to be a Western trucker who has the audacity to go down and blow horns in downtown streets of Ottawa. And then you got to be prepared to put 8 years of your life in prison. But I digress on that.
Yeah, I know. And then to wrap up, another case was the business of the Nutrien potash company deciding that they're going to not wait around for your pal EB there in BC and, the other pal of his, the federal government, to get involved with allowing the port to expand to ship potash out of the country. So what did Saskatchewan do? You know what? We haven't got time for this jazz. The Nutrien company, which is the largest potash producer in the entire world, decided, you know what? We're just going to ship this stuff out through the United States.
From Vancouver.
Yes, the other Vancouver.
But it's the other Vancouver.
It's the other Vancouver. That's right. That's right. Maybe that's where your premier was confused.
Yeah.
There are two Vancouvers. Vancouver, yeah. Washington, Vancouver, British Columbia. Yeah.
There can't be more than one, can there?
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyhow, this guy just did an end run. I think Scott Moe probably is the smartest guy of the bunch. They're saying, you know what? We haven't got time for this crap. Let's just... and then, of course, the liberal grifters, oh my God, Boogeyman's going to put his hands on all that potash and it's never going to go to the ports of Vancouver, Washington. Well, why would he do that? And they've never done that before. Why would they suddenly do this now? This is a kind of crazy talk that is really starting to annoy, our pals to the south. And we didn't talk about the J.D. Vance tweet that drove everybody around the twist in Ottawa. Oh my God, you can't talk that way about Canada.
It goes back to the old adage of sometimes the truth hurts. And, I can't say for sure that this is a direct writing or something that a woman that I think has got a lot of credibility, well, in my mind, has a lot of credibility, a woman by the name of Jody Wilson-Raybould, had put something, I don't know on what platform, but it's come across the desk that says it. She is quoted as saying, "It is something to turn on the news and watch my former cabinet colleagues say and do the exact opposite of what they claimed to be committed to when I was there. Total lack of principles and backbone. There's no wonder there is so much cynicism and contempt for our political leaders." I think that sums up a lot. You've got people who get... Yeah, maybe it's like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. You go there with the greatest intent to try and change the system, but you find the system is just so broken and so corrupt that you can't change it. No matter how much you want to change it, you just can't change it. Right. And like the old saying is after you stop banging your head against the wall, you find out you don't have headaches and it doesn't hurt anymore. You kind of just get sucked into the whole realm of that's the way it is, and I don't think it's going to change. And by the way, this 6-figure salary is pretty nice. I have to work really hard somewhere in the private industry to find that. But then again, I guess that's just because I'm cynical and I never made that much money either. But
yeah, well, you and me both. But at the end of the day, I guess we have to realize that we live in kind of weird times. But it's always good to, you quoted that truth. There's another truth that just, it's on my screen here, and I was going to use it as our sign-off here because there's so much You don't want to say that there's a lot of evil people out there running the show, but what do you call people whose primary goal is to retain power and fill their pockets? You can call them a fraud, you can call them con artists, you can call
grifters.
them grifters, whatever. But but it is a kind of evil. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn, said that evil people always support each other, and that is their chief strength. And that's what I am, seeing lately. Like I said, got back to the curb appeal of the guy that's in charge. He has no curb appeal for the ordinary people. He's not. He's in it for himself. He's in it for his circle, whether it's the
WEF or whatever happens to be the European Union.
We've been critical of how sophomoric the team around him from leftover from the Trudeau era is, but it doesn't matter. It's the same bunch. It's the same cabal. Now I think what we're beginning to see is that the Freelands, the Guilbeaults, the Blairs, the Jollies, these characters are going to drift away. And I'm trying to figure out how is he, orchestrating this, or is there a planned demolition going on here? Because if you start knocking off 4 or 5 MPs, hoping that a by-election will replace them with 4 or 5 liberal MPs, right? You may find yourself out of business. Like, who's given him this sort of advice? What's her name? Jolly was asked if she's really going to Paris yesterday, and she said, no, that's not going to happen. Okay, well, politicians always say one thing and do something else. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that she has no intention of going to Paris yet. But
big yet.
Exactly. But what are they going to do if there's a shift to the center under Carney's feet here? Like, is he pushing the shift to the center by getting rid of some of these old guard Trudeau, WEF players, or is this, as I say, a controlled demolition? Because this is my theory, and it may not be worth anything, but I'll throw it out there. Sometimes governments don't want to be around when tough times happen because they don't want to be the ones having to deal with the problems that they created. So it's best to kind of step back, let the opposition. Yeah. Okay. So if you're talking about a controlled demolition of the current government, and you end up in an election sometime in the spring, and where things get so nasty that they get tossed out on their ear, like it's happened before. It's not like it would be never happened before. Ask the Conservatives what happened to them after Brian Mulroney was sent packing. If that happens, and then the Conservatives are stuck with an unholy mess on their hands. Meanwhile, the Carneyites have already stuffed their pockets. They're out of here. I guarantee you, I would put money on this, that if he was not prime minister after the next election, he would not hang around and be an MP. He'd be back in New York or London or wherever the hell Brookfield would take him back. And if you're a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, I would suggest, or my theory, if this holds true, you're going to find a whole lot of new talent. Because the bunch you inherited since 2015 is getting too long in the tooth here for a lot of people. And if you mix that in with about a fifth of the population of Canada that doesn't actually give a mouse's butt.
Rat's bottom.
Yeah.
Rat's bottom, yeah.
Rat's bottom. Because they have no affinity whatsoever. These people have been imported in here for the last 3 to 5 years. There's nothing going on there. Okay. You don't want to be around when the possibility of actually confederation starts falling apart. You don't want to be stuck with that. Let those guys that thought they could fix this. And my spidey sense tells me fixing this is going to be really tough, really, really tough. I'm not sure how you fix something that's been so.
Well,
Wrecked.
Even with due respect to Mr. Carney, if half of these fiddly bits of paper come into fruition, we're not going to see any action in this country for at least the next decade. It takes that long to go through the process to get anything started and anything accomplished. We're seeing that here in BC in particular. With we don't even have a business case for our pipeline to go through any port in BC, any new port or upgrade of any port. But our First Nations leaders are already on the dare I say on the bandwagon to scuttle that ship before it's even the ink's dry on that piece of paper that was so wildly fluttered around on TV the other day.
Yeah, well, that's a con game. I mean, like we talked about it with
it is.
It's a total. It's total nonsense. And as I said at the beginning, I feel badly for Albertans, and particularly for Danielle Smith, who I think was completely painted into a corner, as you said. With this, there's no hope in hell. They know absolutely that it's a pipe dream, as Polyev said in the House the other day. It's not a pipeline; it's a pipe dream. And that's why I thought the Nate Nutrien deal, Saskatchewan and the company that said, okay, you know what, there's no business. Let's not deal with the non-dealables. Let's just talk to people who are business oriented. Part of the problem, quite frankly, and that right from the top down for the last decade in Canada, in our political elite community, with very few exceptions, these people never wrote a check in their life to run a business of any kind. These are all lawyers, academics, ne'er-do-wells who thought being politicians was a soft touch. I mean, really and truly. Look at this woman who runs immigration, refugee, and citizenship. This woman is not competent whatsoever to be doing anything in a portfolio like that. Okay, nothing. Never mind the one that's on cabinet and no one can tell us she actually ever attended a meeting. What kind of sophomoric bunch is this? So you combine that with the fact no business acumen, no experience whatsoever, no responsibility other than, you know what, I don't feel like being in Parliament, I'll just vote on my phone. Like, this is how Mickey Mouse this has become. These people don't even have the moral turpitude to carry out what they got elected to do, which was sit in the House of Commons and represent their constituents. I'll just sit at home and, turn on my smartphone and vote. Like, this is not how you do a functioning democracy. This is not how you have a Team Canada. And then I'll close with this thing that really got under my skin the other day. The big Team Canada agreement between the provinces over liquor sales and wine sales. Apparently, the various liquor boards from Nova Scotia to BC to Ontario will not accept booze from other provinces. So much for the Team Canada. Apparently, me here in Ontario, I really shouldn't be supporting any BC wine vineyards or drink BC wine. That's not, and nor should you have any Ontario products because that's not good for you. Hey, what the hell are we talking about? Sorry. Okay, we're almost at the hour when we were only going to do 30 minutes, but I guess we got into it.
Well, it could be a man's 30 minutes.
What's that? Oh,
I don't know.
That'll be that's our secret joke for the day. Surely there's some pill for that. Don't forget to hit the like button.
And subscribe.
And subscribe, please, because we need the algorithm for this. The uncensored version is on other platforms other than YouTube. Should you find it? Although I must say we had a jump in the analysis or analytics last week. Maybe people are listening to us. I don't know, but anyway. So
maybe.
Yeah. And if you can buy us a coffee, we'd like that too.
Absolutely.
All right.
But we'll wrap that up and say, we keep on saying, how low can it go? And people are taking it as our word and looking for that bottomless pit. I'm kind of actually thinking that the Marianas Trench is probably not even going to take some of it.
That's really deep.
Apparently 5 miles or so, yeah.
All right, Bob. Well, enjoy your weekend.
You too.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, we will. No doubt there'll be something to keep us on the airwaves.
No doubt. Adios.